Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's EBC video. We're in Anchorage, Alaska this week. We're here at about 7:15 in the evening at this beautiful park. And by the way, in case you're wondering, yes, there are about 4 hours of daylight left in the day today, even though it's already 7:15 at night. And we're in this beautiful park with this incredible vista, with this path up above us where we're looking at some things that are happening, bikes and runners and walkers and that sort of thing. And then of course this beautiful water and mountains and downtown Anchorage back behind us there as well. And I love this vista for thinking about Mark 2 verses 23 through 28 and then Mark 3 verses 1 through 6. Because in those verses, Jesus is teaching about the Sabbath. And so the same way that we think of the Sabbath as that day of rest, the day that we're supposed to be remembering and keeping that Sabbath holy, we have this opportunity to think of this beautiful, serene, peaceful landscape. But I gotta be honest for a moment here, actually, we have a bit of a strange relationship maybe in our modern culture with the Sabbath, right? We know there are some religions that do a great job of still really keeping the Sabbath and honoring sort of a sundown to sunup type of thing, or a sundown to the next sundown type of thing. It's really important to them, but we don't seem to have any of that tradition left, right, in what we do. Now, what we do instead, we go to church and you know, we try to keep it holy that way. But when's the last time that you actually thought to yourself, you know, I should definitely rest because it's a holy day, or I should definitely not do something or do something because it's a holy day? We don't really tend to think about the Sabbath that way. And, you know, Jesus, when he was teaching about the Sabbath, some of what we see in these verses, we tend to use as sort of thinking about whether or not we really need to sort of stop everything on the Sabbath. And I don't think that what Jesus was saying, as we're about to see, is that we shouldn't be remembering the Sabbath. It's just that we shouldn't get too caught up in the rules for the rules' sake. So let's think about it for a moment. First, in Mark 2 at 23, Jesus is actually, his disciples are picking some grain in the fields, and then the Pharisees are unhappy with Jesus and they're telling him so. And he tries to remind them, look, do you remember David did something similar? And then he says, the Sabbath was created for mankind, not mankind created for the Sabbath. It's an important way to say that what's happening here is that the Sabbath is there so that we'll remember God. It's not there so that because we would do things just to sort of demonstrate our own piety on that day, right? We don't earn that grace by doing that. And then what happens next in Mark 3 is that then there's this test, if you will, that's given to Jesus. There's a man with a withered hand, and they're trying to look and see, now, will he do something on the Sabbath that he's not supposed to do? Will he heal the person's withered hand? And Jesus asks them, look, is it lawful to do a good thing on the Sabbath or unlawful? Is it lawful to do a bad thing, or is it unlawful to do that bad thing on the Sabbath? And so as Jesus is saying these things, of course, he's demonstrating that it isn't about the day quite as much as it's about why it is you're doing what you're doing and whether or not you're serving God in what you're doing. So as you're thinking about your own relationship with the Sabbath, think about it from the standpoint not so much of whether or not there's a rule for the rule's sake, but whether or not there are things that you can do that you know are in service to God, whether it's on the Sabbath day or any day, and whether there are things that you maybe could not do on the Sabbath day to just help remember that Jesus is our Savior and that God is there for us. Because the commandment, the fourth commandment after all, is remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And so try to find those ways this week to do something on the Sabbath that remembers it because it is holy. Everyone have a great week.